శ్రీమద్ అజ్జాడ ఆదిభట్ల నారాయణ దాసు గారు హరికథా పితామహ, సంగీత సాహిత్య సార్వభౌమ, ఆటపాటల మేటి, లయబ్రహ్మ, పూర్ణపురుషుడు, పంచముఖీ పరమేశ్వర, పుంభావ సరస్వతి, సహజ పాండిత్య విలాసగా ప్రసిద్ధి చెందినవారు. శ్రీ నారాయణదాసు గారి హరికథ గురించి డాక్టర్ కె సావిత్రీదేవి గారు ఇప్పుడు ఆంగ్లంలో ప్రసంగించనున్నారు. డాక్టర్ కె సావిత్రీదేవి శ్రీ ఆదిభట్ల నారాయణదాసు గారి ముని మనుమరాలు. వీరి తల్లి నారాయణదాసు గారి మనుమరాలైన శ్రీమతి కర్రా శ్యామలాదేవి గారు, తండ్రి శ్రీ కర్రా ఈశ్వరరావు గారు.
I would like to talk about Harikatha as an art form. Milestones in the history of music are named after the prominent trends or the Vageyakaras that dominated the period. In the book of Śrī Balantrapu Rajinikantarao Garu, Andhra Vageyakara Charitramu, Part 1, the eras or yugas based on the dominant trends of the time were given. A few of them are Gita Govinda Yuga, Desa Bhasha Sankirtana Yuga, Yakshagana Yuga, Dhatu Kalpana Parinama Yuga, Sabha Sampradaya Yuga, and Harikatha Yuga. First one, Gita Govinda Yuga. Jayadeva's Gita Govinda, composed in Sanskrit, became so famous that the period of Jayadeva, the 11th and 12th centuries, is known as the era of Gita Govinda. Telugu language earned literary status and honors in the courts of kings in the 11th century. Desa Bhasha Sankirtana Yuga. In the 13th century, Vageyakaras started composing Sankirtanas or devotional compositions in their mother tongue, considering the methods of composition of the regional songs. The first compositions in Telugu were the Sankirtanas of Srikanta Krishnamacharyulu or Krishnamaya. He belongs to the 12th to 13th century and was the predecessor of Annamaya. He authored Simhagiri Narahari Vachanas, and his Sankirtanas were not bound to talas. Talapaka Annamacharya and his descendants composed thousands of Sankirtanas in Telugu, adhering to tala in many kinds. The glorious period of Talapaka family was the 15th and 16th centuries. It was the Swarna Yuga of Sankirtana. Then follows Yakshagana Yuga. Yakshaganas became popular in the 16th century. They enjoyed literary status and honors. The glorious period, the Swarna Yuga of Yakshaganas, was the 17th and 18th centuries, during which Tanjavur was ruled by Nayaka Rajas and Maharashtrians. Later, in the 17th century, Ramadas and Subramanya Kavi, author of Adibhatla Narayana Kirtanas, instilled devotional fervor through their Kirtanas and narrative skills. Narayana Tirtha of the same period composed in the form of Yakshagana. an open-air theatre of dance drama, the characteristic feature of the Yuga, imbibing the bhakti rasa and philosophical view of the Sankirtana form. Dhatu Kalpana Parinama Yuga takes over. In the 17th century, in which Yakshaganas reigned supreme, Kshetriya composed padas giving importance to Sringara Rasa. He gave equal importance to the selection of appropriate ragas and to the composition of lyrics. Matu composition was given primary importance and Dhatu composition secondary importance in the earlier yugas. Words are of primary significance in Annamacharya's and Ramdas Kirtanas. Simple and plain music was used as a subsidiary element. In Kshetriya's padas, music and literature go hand in hand. The foundation he laid for equal weight to Dhatu and Matu, strengthened in the time of Trinity. Tyagaraja, Shyamasastri, Dikshitar, and others. Sabha Sampradaya Yuga. Even though the period of Kshetriya paved way for the tradition of musical concerts, promoted by the appreciation of rajas and lovers of music, the tradition established itself firmly only during Tyagaraja's time. So, Tyagaraja's time can also be called Sabha Sampradaya Yuga, whose form developed further after Tyagaraja and others. During the period of Tyagaraja, the importance to the composition of Dhatu increased gradually in the form of sangatis or embellishments. The lyric as it is was of secondary importance. Harikatha Yuga follows. Towards the end of the 19th century, Yakshaganas and Harikathas coexisted. The composers of Harikathas became very famous as Vagyakaras and authored Harikathas prolifically. The person telling the story through songs, music, and narration is called a Haridasa, and the art form is Harikatha, the story of Hari or Vishnu. During this period, Sabha Sampradayas reached a supreme stature, and musicians composed Pallavis, Chittaswara, Kalpanas, and the like quite frequently. Gradually, the prominence and the importance of music got emphasized even more, sometimes at the cost of the expression of the feelings the lyric conveyed. While Sangeeta Sabhas that reveal the knowledge of the musicians enamored the scholars, Harikathas spread far and wide, enthralling the spectators, scholars, and the laity alike. Harikatha is an ancient tradition. The narration of mythological stories accompanied by singing is an ancient Indian tradition. According to mythological lore, Narada and Hanuma were the earliest Harikatha artists. The art form of Harikatha, which may be defined as Puranic narration, combined with singing classical music, was discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. The narration of Ramayana by Lava and Kusa is cited as yet another example of the prevalence of the art form in ancient times. The art form was also mentioned by Tarlapaka Annamacharya, Tulasidas, and Bammerapotana. The name Harikatha was also mentioned as Kadhaganam or Satkadhaganam. Pandit Narayana Das mentioned that the art form was mentioned in the Rigveda Samhita. It appears Harikatha was an adjunct in Vedic rituals to keep the Yajnakarta or the performer of Yajna awake during the course of Yajna, and also to keep the other participants entertained. Two Brahmins holding Veenas narrated their composition, the story of Rajarshi, dancing and singing. They wore silk clothes, adorned sandalwood paste, garlands of flowers, and delighted their master and the audience with their performance. The primary objective of the combination of Puranic narration and singing was focusing on bhakti. Hence, the combination has come to be known as Hari Vishnu Katha story. Harikatha started as Vishnu Katha and extended to stories of all gods and even their devotees. Kalau Tat Harikirtanat. In Krita Yuga, dhyana or meditation. In Treta Yuga, yajna. In Dvapara Yuga, dharma, karma, right action led to salvation. In Kali Yuga, it is Harikirtana. This was expressed by the sage Vyasa through Bhishma. The subject of Harikatha is the Kirtana of the Lord's nature. Among the 9 paths of devotion, Kirtana or devotional singing is next to Sravana or listening. The aim of Harikatha is Kirtana of the names of the Lord. In the past, Purana Kalakshepa or literary discourse and Harikatha were the 2 forms which worked as social educational institutions. I repeat, in the past, Purana Kalakshepa or literary discourse and Harikatha were the 2 forms which worked as social educational institutions. The origin of the creation of Harikatha as a separate art form is not very clear. The cultural tradition of Harikatha as a separate art form could be seen in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra Pradesh, but probably influenced by the form in Maharashtra during the reign of Shivaji Maharaj. Shivaji's guru, Samartha Ramadas, used to narrate Harikathas. He was a devotee who spread the message that importance has to be given not to material possessions, but to ardent devotion of the Almighty. And in his book, Dashabodha, he elevated the place of Harikatha, saying, Harikatha artist can attain moksha easily. He was the lover of Harikatha who differentiated Harikatha from Purana and created a significant place to it. In the same period lived Moropantu Vamana Pandit, Tukaram, and many other prominent Harikatha artists in Maharashtra. The exponents of Harikatha art form are Maharashtrians, but they call this art form Kirtana, which is of two types, Varkari style and Naradiya style. Var means pilgrimage. One who undertook this pilgrimage from Alandi, the Samadhi of Gnaneshwar, to Pandharpur was called the Varkari. The Varkari Kirtankars, along with a group of devotees, performed bhajan and Nama Sankirtan. The songs of various saint composers were explained by the Kirtankar. Tukaram was one of the Varkari Kirtankars who attracted thousands of people to his performances. The Naradiya Kirtankar was well known for his erudition and scholarship and belongs to the parampara or lineage of Lord Narada himself, who is considered the originator of this style. A miniature tambura, tamburi in Marathi, adorns the shoulder of Naradiya Kirtankar. Shirdi Sai Baba is said to have endorsed this style as the most suitable one to promote devotion among masses. Das Ganu Maharaj of Shirdi Samsthan followed this tradition. Kirtanas were embellished by metrical compositions known as abhangas and ovi vruttas. Over time, abhanga became synonymous with kirtana. The exponent occasionally matched his narration with suitable demonstrative action rather than abhinaya, characteristic of modern Harikathas. This was the structure of the abhanga of Maharashtra in the 17th century. The dance element of original Telugu Harikathas, as devised by Adibhatla Narayana Dās, was absent. According to Professor Śrī Ādibhatla, this art form percolated to Tamil Nadu and Karnataka when parts of these states, as they exist today, were parts of a kingdom ruled by Maharashtrian kings with Tanjavur as its seat. The Maratha rulers, however, encouraged a modified form of abhanga when they ruled parts of Andhra Pradesh. The art form came to be known as Yakshagana. The Yakshaganas had in them classical music elements and costumes appropriate to the characters in the narrative. Thus, a visual effect was added to the narration and singing combination. These two elements were absent in abhanga. In abhanga, all the roles were enacted by one person. But in Yakshagana, there were several actors who essayed different important characters in the narration. The three main elements of Yakshagana are Padyam, Geetam, that is song, and Vachanam, text. These three are present in Harikatha also. But the two art forms differ in the mode of presentation. Let us have a quick look of the tradition in Harikatha tradition of Harikatha in the southern states. Sankirtana is the life of Harikatha, which is predominantly a musical discourse. The Harikatha starts with a song and gets in tune with Padyam or poem and Vachanam, text in chorus. Tamil Katha Kalakshepam and Karnataka Harikatha Kalakshepam were influenced by Marathas' Abhangam. As Tamilians are music lovers, there was more of music in Tamil Katha Kalakshepam, spending time listening to a story. Also, there were supportive singers to the main narrator in Kalakshepam. Tanjavur Krishna Bhagavatar, whose period was 1841 to 1903, can be mentioned as the Pitamaha or architect of the modern Kalakshepa tradition of Tamil Nadu, which combined itself with the Maharashtrian tradition. He was original in his narration and Kirtana, yet, along with his Kirtanas, he used to sing Abhangas, Purandaradas, and Tyagaraja's compositions. We learnt a good number of Tyagaraja's compositions from Thillaisthanam Ramu Iyengar, a direct disciple of Tyagaraja. We can elicit that the progress of Katha Kalakshepam in Tamil Nadu was influenced by Tyagaraja, Ramadas, and Annamaya in the bhajan method for centuries. Dr. Pramila Gurumurthy stated that it is incorrect to say that there was no Harikatha in Tanjavur before the Marathi Kirtan. She asserted that the opinion is wrong and cited details in her Katha Kalakshepa study. It was her PhD thesis. The Tanjavur Katha tradition adopted certain fine elements from the Maharashtrian Kirtan, according to her. Karnataka Harikatha Kalakshepam was also influenced by Maharashtrians and shaped in the Tamil style. Gopala Bhagavat and Nanjunda Bhagavat were influenced by the Maratha Kirtankars. Some Maratha stories also were incorporated into Karnataka Kalakshepam. Bhadragiri Achyuta Das and Tumukur Venugopala Das are well-known Kannada Harikatha artists. Tumukur Venugopala Das can be considered as the Pitamaha of the modern Karnataka Harikatha Kalakshepam. Kannada and Tamil Dasas used slokas of Sanskrit in the place of Telugu Padyas. The core of the Harikatha continued to be Kirtanas. But surprisingly, Tanjavur Krishna Bhagavatar also used to sing Telugu Padyas. He considered Tyagaraja Kirtanas as the life of Harikatha. Kannadigas treated the compositions of Purandaradasa and the like to be the life of Harikatha. This is the reason why the word Sankirtana aptly describes Harikatha. Acharya Tumati Donappa mentioned that in Kerala, Meru Swami from Maharashtra who was also known by the name Ananta Padmanabha Goswami, narrated Harikathas with the encouragement of Swati Tirunal. He was in the Tanjavur court as Vidwan. The Harikatha form was introduced by Swati Tirunal Maharaja in Kerala at the time when the Tanjavur style of Harikatha was at its peak. Palakkad Anantarama Bhagavatar and Muttaya Bhagavatar were eminent Harikatha performers in Kerala. Harikatha of Kerala was Tanjavur Harikatha with a change of language, and the art form flourished in Kerala during the period of Swati Tirunal. The Katha tradition in each state emphasizes the cultural and religious heritage of the country with a regional flavor. We come to the era of Adibhatla Narayana Dās. Sudarsana Das, Bagepalli Anantaramacharya were the earlier Harikatha artists in Telugu. The latter called the art Yakshagana. In the later part of the 19th century, Harikatha artists of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka would come to Andhra Pradesh to perform Harikathas. In 1883, when Adibhatla Narayana Dās was 19 years old and was studying matriculation in Vijayanagaram, Kuppuswami Naidu of Chennapatnam performed Dhruva Charitramu in Kanukurti's house. The Katha Kalakshepa performance inspired Adibhatla Narayana Dās to create his unique art form. He was already a singer, a poet, and a writer with an expertise in dance. He introduced significant changes in the format to provide the audience with enduring, unforgettable aesthetic experience. With violin or veena or harmonium and mridangam as accompaniments, the artist performs Harikatha in a standing posture, sings and dances. The storyteller uses a pair of castanets or chidatalu to keep beat. Using the rudimentary idea of Puranic narration and music, he had created a new genre of performing art as the architect of the modern Telugu Harikatha. He included Padyam, Gadyam, prose, and narration, embellishing it with improvised poetry or asukavitva, classical music, classical dance, and enacting the characters that were part of the narrative. For him, Harikatha was a combination of classical poetry, classical language, classical Indian music, Bharata's Natya Sastra, and a stage for mythological drama. To sum up, Narayana Das Harikatha is Sakala Kala Samahara, a confluence of several modes of art. This aspect of Narayana Das Harikatha, with the exponent donning multiple roles, lent his format a unique, inimitable characteristic, never seen before or later in any performing art anywhere in the world. Having designed the form, Narayana Das performed his unique art for 6 decades, traversing East and South India. In content, his Harikathas were literary masterpieces. As a born poet, Narayana Das had a flair for creativity, writing ornate prose and versification. As a great Vagyekara, he had the ability to correlate dhatu and matu and had the knowledge of raga, tala, and bhava. Adding to the above skills are acting prowess and the knowledge of Natya Sastra. An important feature of Telugu Harikatha is that Vachana is not delivered as in a speech or read, but recited as a lyric. It was how Narayana Das performed his Harikathas, and soon it turned into a template for others to emulate. His Vachanas of Śrī Ādibhatla Narayana remind us of Bana's Kadambari and Dandi's Dashakumara Charitra. We can understand how Narayana Das himself did the work of a director, choreographer, and actors of modern cinema by merely reading these elaborate vachanas. To his perfect knowledge of Tala and Swarakalpana was added dance. The combination of the 3 made a captivating impact. Thousands of spectators watched the performance of the versatile genius, spellbound with ecstatic delight. Dr. B.M. Sundaram, musicologist, multilinguist, writer, and composer of Pondicherry, discoursed on musical forms in Katha Kirtan of South India and eulogized the achievements of Adibhatla Narayana Dās of Andhra Pradesh in Sant Bhadragiri Achyuta Das Memorial National Seminar on Katha Kirtan, which was organized by Vanamala Center for Art and Culture and Shajya Kala Kendra Trust in Bengaluru. On 23rd of October 2016, I was fortunate to attend this seminar. The melodic dramatization of a mythological story by a Harikatha artist who is skilled in music, literature, and dance, all alone performing the several characters on stage through the method of discourse and narration with repartee, making the viewers visualize the scene, understand the characters, and experience all the rasas or emotions is Harikatha. The objective of a Harikatha artist is not to exhibit his histrionic skills, but to make his audience visualize the unfolding narrative as it was and the Almighty. That is why Harikatha is a divine art, a profound knowledge in the scriptures, a keen observation of life, a thorough understanding of the human mind, and love for pious life, and the joy of singing and dancing to convey a philosophical message are the prerequisites of a Harikatha artist. Harikatha preaches dharma. Narayana Das announced clearly the requisite qualification to become a Harikatha artist is to be an ardent devotee. He emphasizes that the sole purpose of all arts is to express the divine and to inculcate audience with devotional fervor. He was at heart a great devotee. It is because of this rare quality that Narayana Das could produce many devotional yakshaganas and philosophic works like Bhattasari, Jagadjyoti, and the Sanskrit Kavyam Tarakam, which earned encomiums from the German professor Gelbner. We can understand the focus and the ardent devotion with which Narayana Das served Harikatha. He emphasized that a Harikatha artist has to be a vegetarian, kind to all living creatures, and detached like a saint. He has to be vegetarian, kind to all living creatures, and detached like a saint. Satvikahara nirata, sarvabhuta dayapara, samsara vimukho yogi, haridasa iti smrita. Now, let us observe the references of Harikatha as Yakshagana. If a Prabandha is performed by 4 actors, it is Yakshagana. And if it is performed by 1, it is transformed into Harikatha. Yakshagana moves in a dramatic way and is action-oriented. The narrative links are very brief in it, whereas narrative nature is predominant in Harikatha. Gradually, Harikatha established its individuality, being separated from Yakshagana. In the narration of the story, Gadya, Padya, songs, characterization, conversations, Darus entered into Harikatha. Harikatha of Andhra has Darus, characteristic feature of Yakshagana, emphasizing the very great influence of Yakshaganas on Harikatha. In Harikatha, the exponent dons many roles, the narrator, performing musician, dancer, and actor who enacts all characters. The confluence of many talents and skills made Harikatha a popular art form and attracted audiences in thousands. Śrī Ādibhatla Nārāyaṇa Dās, the well-known literary and music critic and exponent, in his Andhra Vaggeyakara Charitramam, opines that Harikatha of Andhra is quite independent and an art on its own. Balaji Das, Chevuri Erukayya Das, and Narayana Das refer to Harikathas as Yakshaganas. Narayana Das himself used the 2 words Harikatha and Yakshagana synonymously. He called his Harikathas Yakshagana Prabandhas. A few regard Harikatha as Yakshagana on account of its visual and auditory effects. Tyagaraja called his Nauka Charitra Yakshagana. Swakruta Mrudu Yakshagana Prabandha Sarani Vividha Desambulam Pinna Peddalugala Palusabhala Haribhakti Nupanya Simpaleni Sangeeta Kavita Bhimana Mela. I repeat. Swakruta Mrudu Yakshagana Prabandha Sarani Vividha Desambulam Pinna Peddalugala Palusabhala Haribhakti nupanya simpaleni Sangeeta Kavita Bhimana Mera. Narayana Das asserts that the sole purpose of all arts is to imbue the spectators with devotion. The art form was celebrated all over during the reign of Narayana Das. There were poets even before Pedana, but he came to be known as Andhra Kavita Pitama. Similarly, Narayana Das propagated the art, making Harikatha a powerful and revered medium of devotional ardor, and is renowned as Harikatha Pitamaha, a feast to all senses. He made Harikatha art form a center of all arts. It was not for mere entertainment. He placed Harikatha on a pedestal. He made it reach the senses and churn the mind to awake and realize the inner being. He churned the mind to awake and realize the inner being, a precious instrument to inculcate devotion to God and establish moral values in the society. He made Harikatha reach the senses and churn the mind to awake and realize the inner being, a precious instrument to inculcate devotion to God and establish moral values in the society. He worshipped the art form to propagate dharma or righteousness and the truth. He asserted that the Bhagavatar should end the Harikatha, proving the essence of God. The excellence of the performer reflected in the intensity of the experience of the spectators and listeners, leading to their empowerment and enlightenment. The artist makes the narration delightful and beautiful through the composite art form. Narayana Das Harikatha was a platform to impart knowledge and an organization of all arts, music, literature, dance, and improvised poetry and music on occasion. He was very much influenced by the Hindustani styles of singing and used to render ragam and tanam in Behag, Yaman, Tilang, and other Hindustani ragas. His music was Indian, a beautiful blend of Carnatic and Hindustani. He developed his own method of Harikatha narration, sang his own musical compositions, and he never borrowed from any other poet or singer. The world of scholars bowed down in front of his vast knowledge and originality. He carved Harikatha as a superior art, more superior than the concert of a musician. Music became a part of Harikatha to convey the story. A capable Harikatha artist pens down the story he would narrate and the kirtanas involved. Narayana Das was a Vagyekara and Harikatha artist. He performed the Harikathas. He himself scripted. Harikatha of Narayana Das was a Triveni confluence of Nada, Pada, and Pada. Nada, sound, is inherent for music. Pada, for literature, and Pada, feet, for dance. His Harikathas are so popular. It is unimaginable today, but on many occasions, enthusiastic audience had to return disappointed for want of space in the theatre. While the storyline remained the same, the mode of delivery and discourse varied depending on the audience. The same Harikatha used to change its form in different places as Sangeeta Sabha or Sahitya Sabha or Shastra Sabha based on the interest of the audience. He was an embodiment of all arts who would appear as the greatest musician to musicians, an authority of Natya Shastra to dancers, an expert of languages and literature to literary figures, and the greatest actor to actors. His versatility in exposition and his Harikatha were the delight of a lifetime to all and sundry, the elite and the laity, scholars and illiterate. His art carved a niche for itself as a feast to all the senses and turned into a delightful union of all arts. Sambhoyanadi meti sabdha hunkarambu yurumuchunnattundu marapurat. Those are the words of Pillalamarri Ramadasu Bhagavat. Gambhiramainani shambhoravambulo ambodhularachara andala naram. Ammula Viswanatha. Shambho, the sound seems to be thundering and can never be forgotten. Oceans seem to be calling in the majestic Shambho. He introduced Manjari and Nartaki, hitherto unknown in Harikathas. In these two forms, there are no Pallavi and Anupallavi. There are only charanas. Each charana has two parts, and there are 2, 3, or 4 charanas. There is a prasa for 2 parts. Yati is separate for each part. Manjari is used to narrate the sequences between dialogues and in situations when the story has to be moving fast. Manjari is used to narrate the sequences between dialogues and in situations when the story has to move fast. Mattu is also another unique musical element Narayana Das introduced. Mattu is shaped suitable to dance with music and literature of equal importance. These mattus popularized Narayana Das musical compositions as people are involuntarily induced to tap their feet to a compelling beat. Nartaki is a song based on matras and chandas. Nartakis are there in Markandeya Charitra and Savithri Charitra. Besides these musical elements, there are verses in various meters like Kanda, Sisa, Tetagiti, or Ataveladi, and in the end, Mangala Harati, as in Yakshaganas. All of them are meant to be sung. Narayana Das Harikathas were steeped in the Andhra culture. They reflected the songs in folklore and other childhood games that children were encouraged to play. For example, the girl Rukmini in Rukmini Kalyanamu performed Marriage of Dolls and played Gujjana Gundlu, a play among children with sand. Narayana Das served Harikatha Saraswati, singing, dancing, and forgetting himself in ecstasy for 6 decades. He became inseparable from the art form he had created. He became one with his creation. Prior to Narayana Das, Harikatha artists took the support of Harikatha for their livelihood. I repeat, prior to Narayana Das, Harikatha artists took the support of Harikatha for their livelihood. With Narayana Das, Harikatha with Narayana Das Harikatha. Harikatha art took the support of Narayana Das for its livelihood. He excelled as an inimitable Harikatha expert. Now we observe Harikathaka Lakshanam, the requisite qualities of a Harikatha artist. Narayana Das clearly enumerated the qualities a Harikatha artist should possess in his prologue to Ambarisha Charitram. They are the qualities of a Vaggayakara of superior stature, as Sarangadeva detailed in his Sangeeta Ratnakara. The artist should be able to weave the story according to the culture and civilization of the people of a place where Harikatha is performed. Narayana Das became victorious in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka with musical excellence. In 1927, he was invited to inaugurate the All India Music Academy in Madras. Narayana Das sang his Swarakshara Kruti compositions, making the audience spellbound. He was praised by Tamil Vidwans as Andhra Desa Bhushanam. Andhra Desa Bhushanam. He was successful in Bengal in the presence of Rabindranath Tagore with his knowledge of Laya, narrating a Harikatha in Sanskrit and with an exposition in Hindi and English. Knowledge of many languages is another quality of a Vaggayakara. His performance of Ambarishopakhyanamu in Kapaleshwara Temple, Chennai, earned him great applause and fame. In its issue of June 30, 1894, the Hindu praised him as an exquisite poet, a versatile genius, conversant with English, a profound scholar in Telugu and Sanskrit, and an accomplished musician of the most enchanting type. While this pride of Vijayanagaram was unfolding the story with his inimitable skill, the audience was beside itself with joy. Not only was he applauded time and again, but at the close, there was a spontaneous outburst
from everyone present, exclaiming that it was a rare and excellent treat.
Of the gifted expounder, it may be well and truly said that he is entitled to be spoken of in glowing terms by the best of pundits, by the most skillful songsters, by the most ardent lovers of music, and by the most reputed of elocutionists. The rhythmic cadences of his harmonious voice, the melodious intonations of his musical flight, and the snatches of vivid and picturesque representations of nature conjured up by his lively and constructive faculty of imagination and his powerful command of the language appealed to the listener's spiritual sensibilities. The artist should be a great actor. Sthanam Narasimha Rao praised Narayana Das as a great actor who can perform all the roles. The characters can be seen in the artist only when he is able to act all the roles. With knowledge of the three elements of music, Gita, Vadya, and Nritya, the integrity of Laya, Raga, and Bhava is understood. Harikatha artist should have a thorough knowledge of the elements of music. Narayana Das excelled in Laya, playing veena, poetry, composing lyric, and music. With these skills, a discourse becomes an expressive Sankirtana. He knew all types of music. He was skilled in Hindustani ragas and layas, There was richness in his music that made people of all regions love his music. Every Harikatha performance must appear new to the narrator and the listeners. That itself is a proof of the artist's success. The depth of narration and the literary dance and the musical skills exhibited with the underlined preaching change with the spectators in view. That is the secret of his success. Nārāyaṇa Dās would enliven his performances by customizing his performance to suit the tastes and talents of the audience. With an absolute accuracy in calculating the mindset of the audience, he would proceed to present his effervescent talents in the form of Harikatha. He adapted his presentations to appeal to the scholars as much as to the layman. The artist can be revered only if he is a Haridasa in his thoughts, words, and deeds. Nārāyaṇa Dās Harikathas had scholarly speeches, small stories called Pitta Kathalu, comical presentations, the ultimate of Carnatic music, as well as general renditions, pure Abhinaya presentations, as well as simple dancing numbers. The powerful voice of Nārāyaṇa Dās would be talked about in astonishment in those days. Harikatha artist should have a handsome appearance, which can't be achieved by outward makeup or ornamentation. That is a spiritual beauty which is obtained by the strength of upasana or spiritual practice, with which he can don all kinds of characters and perform them as a great actor. Due to the power of Nārāyaṇa Dās upasana, it would seem like Sangeeta Saraswati, Nritya Saraswati, and Sahitya Saraswati, goddess of music, dance, and literature, appeared in front of the audience during his Harikatha performance. They forgot about him, his handsome figure, and their surroundings once the Harikatha started, which may stretch to any number of hours and return to themselves after it was finished. Only a person who earns his livelihood without depending on others can propagate dharma or righteousness fearlessly. A dependent person can't express his opinions boldly. Harikatha can't be performed as a job done. Harikatha artist has to be free to travel and explore. When Nārāyaṇa Dās agreed to work as principal of a music college, Sri Vijayarama Gana Pathasala, the present government Maharaja College of Music and Dance, Vijayanagaram, it was on his terms that the college be treated as a temple of Sri Rama and he his servant. The artist should be able to remain stoic, unperturbed by happiness and sorrow, and the contradicting elements a man experiences time to time. A person stung by feelings of envy and hatred fails to realize himself. God announces his existence only through a stoic Harikatha artist whose intrinsic nature is to remain unperturbed. In fact, it is a very rare phenomenon for a purpose to possess all of these great characteristics. It doesn't imply that the others are not qualified to perform the art. It is affirmed that Nārāyaṇa Dās has to be taken as a unique and exemplary personality, and Harikatha artists should take up their art earnestly with a consciousness to justify it to the best of their ability. Ajjada Adibhatla Narayana Dās served Harikatha for a glorious period of 6 decades, 1883 to 1945, transporting his audience into his world of Harikatha by his multifaceted genius. The period was highlighted as Narayana Das Yuga in Telugu Harikatha Vangmaya Charitra by Acharya Tumati Donappa. The years before 1883 were termed as Pran or pre-Narayana Das Yuga, and the years after 1945 as Anantara or post-Narayana Das Yuga. Some of the prominent Harikatha artists of the period before 1883, the Pran or pre-Narayana Das Yuga, were Dhulipala Krishna Kavi, Koppera Baburao, Mainampati Raghavaya, and Bagepalli Anantaramacharyalu of the many artists. Let us know some information of the disciples of Narayana Das, because Adibhatla Narayana Das was very, very, very fond of his disciples. Narayana Das trained many disciples and was known for his great affection for them. Vajapayajula Subbaya, having learnt music, came under the tutelage of Narayana Das, learnt the art thoroughly from his guru. In 1921, there was a competition of Narayana Das Harikathas held at Nandigama. Vajapayajula Subbaya's performance of Rukmini Kalyanam won the first prize. Nemani Varhalu was a prominent disciple whose voice, it was opined, had traits of Narayana Das' voice. A vocalist, he worked in the music department of Sri Vijayarama Pathsala. Neti Lakshminarayana and Vajapayajula Subbaya was a unique pair. They both were first taught Ananda Mananda Malinchinan Bala, the first Kriti of Śrī Ādibhatla Rāmayanam, on a Vijayadasami during Dasara Navaratri in the Music College of Vijayanagar. Except on the first day of tutelage, they were not made to sit and learn from their guru formally. While returning from music college, Narayana Das would make them stand near the Gantastambam or in the marketplace and would teach them singing, making them dance to all the Talagatis. Crowds would gather around watching the enchanting teaching, learning process. When the disciples walked with their guru, learning the art in the streets of Vijayanagaram, Narayana Das appeared like Valmiki, teaching Kusa and Lava. They were experts in performing Narayana Das Śrī Ādibhaṭla Rāmayanam. They earned the name Ramayana Brothers and were the fortunate ones to have learnt 12 Harikathas from Narayana Das. Among all the Harikathas of Narayana Das, Janaki Sabadam was the most difficult and was performed only once, even by the composer. It had 36 Vivadi Melakarta ragas. Ramayana Brothers also performed it once, changing the ragas with their guru's permission, and exhibited the talent. The devotion they had for their great guru was incomparable. Neti Lakshminarayana established Sri Narayana Das Harikatha Gana Parishad in Vijayawada. Narayana Das was an embodiment of God in his view. He got the idol of Narayana Das consecrated with mantras in the Siva temple of Satyanarayanpuram, Vijayawada, on 25th of February 1951. He was the Das of Narayana Das, who worshipped throughout his life his guru's padukas, footwear, chittitalas used for beat, anklets, and staff in his puja room. Vajapayajula Subbaya and Peddinti Suryanarayana Dikshidas assisted Neti Lakshminarayana in the installation of Narayana Das idol in the Siva temple. The way the guru was worshipped by his dear disciples is a valid proof to show the influence he had on his disciples. Karuru Krishnadas was a fortunate dear disciple of Narayana Das who imbibed the dance of his guru and was supported by him for 14 years. From 1930 to 1944, he was supported by his guru, Narayana Das. Kondapalli Kalyana Das deserved his guru's affection by his talent. He learnt Gaurappa Pendli Harikatha from Narayana Das. Also, he was the only fortunate one who learnt the performance of Shanmukhi and Vimukhi Talas. His original name was Asiraya. The name Kalyana Das was bestowed on him by Narayana Das. Bhavaradas, Vedanabhatla Venkataramanaya, Peri Nasimham, Pillalamari Ramadas, Chittimalla Rangayadas, Vadlamani Narsimadas, Sripada Lingamurti, Cherukapalli Kanakadurga Das, Mallikarjuna Das, Teki Ramamurti, Parimi Subramanya Das, Adusumalli, Narayana Das, Jagannatha Das, Banka Balakrishna Das, and many more were direct disciples of Narayana Das. To be known as his disciple was itself a great certificate in Andhra Pradesh. Several aspiring Harikatha artists who had great regard for him became his indirect disciples. Pasumarthi Krishnamurti was one among them. Hari Somayajula Subramanyam, Malladi Chandrasekhara Sastri, Bhamidipati Ayyappa Sastri wrote verses on him in reverence. Some more indirect disciples were Amula Viswanatha Bhagavatar, Kuchibutla Koteswar Rao, Yellabandi Tata Rao, Dora Shirababu, Urra Sivaramakrishna Sarma, Akkipedi Sri Ramasarma. Narayana Das imparted his knowledge to many worthy, showing them the big path as a beacon light. Besides his direct disciples, there were many who considered themselves his Ekalavya disciples. The institution of Harikatha, which he originated, extended itself into a vast world of direct and indirect disciples. Harikathas of this Narayana Das are Dhruva Charitram, Ambarishi Charitram, Gajendra Mokshanam, Markande Charitram, Prahalada Charitram, Rukmini Kalyanam, Harishchandropakyanam, Bhishma Charitram, Savithri Charitram, Janaki Sabhadam, Śrī Ādibhatla Narayana, comprising 6 Harikathas, Sri Harikathamrutam in Sanskrit, comprising 3 Harikathas, Gaurapa Pendli, Achattelugu Harikatha, Govardhanodharanam, which was unpublished. Some interesting information about Narayana Das Harikathas. When Vijayanagaram was experiencing famine without rains for many years, Narayana Das Harikatha was organized in a complex of 3 temples known as 3 temples. Narayana Das announced that all the devotees coming to watch the Harikatha must carry with them umbrella as it would rain heavily. People were surprised to hear of rain in the scorching heat of the sun. He was performing Markandeya Charitra, that was Harakatha, Sivakatha. The performance ended at the time of Lingodbhava, that is midnight. It started raining with lightning and thunder. There was a torrential downpour and all the lakes were filled with it. Still, people of Vijayanagaram continued to talk of it. Markandeya Charitra and Harishchandra Charitra have Swarakshara Kritis. Śrī Ādibhatla Rāmayanam, comprising 6 Harikathas, is a testimony of Narayana Das' literary excellence, musical brilliance, and splendor of dance. Apt rasas that suit different situations were depicted through appropriate ragas and talas. Darvus and jatis are incorporated, giving a lot of scope for a classical dance. He would bring out several variations of the jatis through his footwork during his Harikatha performance. He would show mudras to explain the meaning of a particular word, or sometimes to express the meaning and sometimes to add significance to the abhinaya. After presenting every kriti with proper abhinaya and dance steps, he would present pure nritya on swaraprasthas. In Ramayanam, Yathartha Ramayanam, we find apart from regular kritis and verses, swaras mixed with jatis and swaras mixed with sahitya. This particular and extraordinary feature itself is a highlight to the Harikatha. Adept in Laya, Narayana Das composed kritis in all talas and jatis. Uttara Ramayanam, written as Janaki Sabhadam, Harikatha, stands unique among all his works. In it, 36 Vivadi Melakarta or parent ragas and Janya derived ragas, which were not much used by his contemporary musicians, were used. It is difficult to even find out the Janaka or the parent ragas of these Janya ragas and their murchanas. Later, Dhatu-Matu combination is even more difficult. These remain as a testimony of Narayana Das' vast knowledge and expertise in the theoretical and practical aspects of music. The swaras and the progress of notes in rare ragas help learners to understand the nature of the ragas. He made a general rule that the verse below the kirtana has to be sung in the same raga set for kirtana. If the raga for the verse changes, there might be a change of the rasa, which is undesired. But he himself relaxed the rule for the verses below the kirtanas of Janaki Sabhadam, which are allowed to be sung in convenient ragas. To mention a few of the ragas he used, Manjula, Kanakangi, Vanaspati, Jhankara Dhvani, Dhavalambari, Nitimati, Sucharitra, Navanita, Koshalamu, Shavani, Jhalavarali, Gavambhodhi, Mara Ranjani, Sulini, Raghupriya, Bhoga Vasantakam, Dhatuvardhani, Pavani, Rasikapriya, Viswambhari, Varunapriya, Yagapriya, Hatakambari, Syamalangi, Senapati, Divyamani, Jyoti Swarupini, Kantamani, Nasika Bhushani, Sarada Bharanam, Gange Bhushani, Chitrambari, Tanarupi, Manavati, Rupavati. Narayana Das provided notations for the kirtanas of this Harikatha. In the other Harikathas, he made use of popular Rakti Ragas. Narayana Das immortalized his expertise in music and his creative genius for the benefit of posterity through Janaki Sabadam, which he dedicated to Hanuma through the notations he gave for the kirtanas in rare ragas. He must have thought Hanuma, who is an authority in music, is the right Krutipati to receive this great work in which he experimented the use of rare Medakatta ragas and Janya ragas. Narayana Das performed this Harikatha only once, and that was on his 60th birthday and in the temple of Anjaneya near Ayyakoneru. Savithri Charitram is a treasure house of Janya ragas. It is a very important Harikatha in its musical aspects. In all the kirtanas of this Harikatha, Ragamudra is incorporated in the kirtana very actively. For example, Kanikaramuna Ganu Ganapati. Kanikaramuna Nanu Ganu Ganapati has a raga Hamsadhvani Mudra. He also used Narayana Dasa Poshaka in a few kirtanas. In the Mangalam of Savitri Charitram, Mamuganna Talli Ishwari, in Surata Raga, Ekatala, he writes, Narayana Dasa Palini, Ananta Suguna Salini. Vagyakara Mudras are incorporated in these compositions. Narayana Das had great regard for Śrī Sivanarayana Tirtha, as Narayana Tirtha was Telugu speaking, though it was not required in Sanskrit. He used Yati and Prasa in his Taranga Kirtanas. Besides, he followed the Sanskrit tradition of Antyaprasa also. After Narayana Tirtha's Tarangas in Krishna Leela Tarangini, it was Narayana Das who scripted Sri Krishna's Charitra as a Geya Kavya, Sri Harikathamrutam, in Sanskrit language. Though there is no principle of Prasa in Sanskrit, he authored the Sanskrit Kirtanas with Yati and Prasa principles like Narayana Tirtha. All the poetic beauties of Potana's Bhagavata, written in Telugu, are found in his work. He proved that the combination of Gita, vocal music, Vadya, instrumental music, and Nritya, dance, is the characteristic of music. He adored and practiced such real music like Sri Sivanarayana Tirtha. Bhagavata story was described in Tirtha Tarangas and Narayana Das Binduvus of Sri Harikathamrutam. The predominant goal of Harikatha is Brahma Nirupana, establishing God consciousness or omniscience. The Harikatha artist must succeed in asserting the supreme force at the end of his Harikatha. Only if this significant purpose of the art is served, it can be called Harikatha. Despite his multifaceted genius, Narayana Das chose the path of a Harikatha artist for the reason. He was the person who incorporated the maximum of Bhagavata in his life. Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Sarva Papa Pranasanam Pranamo Dukkha Samanaha Tam Namami Harim Param. Chanting the names of God relieves us of worldly sorrows and purifies the soul. Till the middle of the 20th century and the advent of cinema, performing arts had lofty objectives like preaching the path of righteousness and elevating the soul. The entertainment element in the art forms was incidental. The eponymous Harikatha did not deviate from the spirit of the times. Its prime objective was bhakti, devotion. Narayana Das asserts that the objective of Harikatha is to bring out the best of human nature, to bless the audience with dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. In his foreword to Śrī Ādibhatla Narayana, he says that the only goal of a human being is to strive and attain moksha. To attain that, one has to grasp the path of devotion, which will lead the person to the ultimate goal, self-actualization and God realization through the path of liberation. The audience of a Harikatha will be blessed, and the artist also acquires dharma, artha, kama, and moksha by his performance. He asserted a true Harikatha artist is a great person, and common people cannot understand his greatness. Just as only a cobra can understand the tunes of Nagaswaram, only the wise can comprehend Haridasa. Nagaswaram paata Nagupa merugu. Tunga dubbuna dirgu tottemi erugu. Gnani erungu sugnanula marugu. Na gnani emerugu Haridasu teragu. The purpose of Harikatha is both to entertain and educate, to transmit cultural, educational, and religious values to the masses, to inculcate the audience with devotion and righteousness, to drive out the devil and bring out the human. The creation of such an art form lifted Narayana Das to celestial heights. He sang the glory of God with all his lyrical, musical, philosophical, and devotional excellence. He was a saint first and an artist next. He worshipped his art, practiced the art, enjoyed the art, performed the art, and taught the art. His life was accomplished with his inseparable bond with his heart. Harikatha, a confluence of all arts, reigned supreme during the period of Śrī Ādibhaṭla Nārāyaṇa Dās, who pioneered the art form in Andhra and took it to dizzy heights of excellence and honors. Śrī Ādibhaṭla Nārāyaṇa Dās performed Harikathas for 6 decades and remains synonymous with his unique art. I would like to end my talk with a poem I wrote on him some years ago. Harikatha Pitamaha, Śrī Ādibhaṭla Nārāyaṇa Dās. Once upon a time, there lived a man sublime. There was music in his voice, to the listeners' hearts rejoice. His fingers on the veena strings swayed us on to blissful springs. His music had charm to bring in rain. He made Harikatha supremely reign. His cute ditties and sweet melodies told his stories, sang his glories. He pranced and danced in rhythm and rhymes. He walked and talked for him of all times. Readily, languages became his own. For his memory too, he was well known. From his heart gushed poetry, as a mountain stream pours free. In him, all arts cheerfully met. There can never be another like him, I bet. He was light to the sight and to heart's delight. Him, those who saw, to him bowed in awe, and he bowed to none but to the mighty one. In great exhilaration, voices declared in unison, goddess of learning descended and took his form splendid. Adibhatla Narayana Dās, his name, an emperor in music and literature in fame. He and his stories shine in time's glories. Thank you for patient listening.